Welcome to Firehouse Software. This video is designed to introduce you to FH Sketch, our new floor plan sketching tool powered by Apex. Before you begin drawing, we need to cover a few areas such as where and how to access FH Sketch. With Firehouse Software loaded, click on the Occupancy button at the top. This will open the Occupancy window where you can browse through the properties in your database. I'll choose Acme Locomotive Works to show you a record that contains a sketch. Clicking OK will load the occupancy, and the various tabs containing pertinent data are now available. Existing users will notice a new tab labeled FH Sketch. I'll click on this tab, which houses all the sketch data associated with this occupancy. If any sketches exist for this occupancy, they will be listed to the left. Clicking on these files will update the thumbnail image to the right. You have several options that are available to you through this tab. New Sketch will launch FH Sketch and allow you to create a new file for the active occupancy. As you can see, you can create multiple sketch files within the same record. Open Sketch will launch FH Sketch and load the selected file for viewing and editing purposes. Copy Sketch also launches FH Sketch and automatically creates a copy of the selected file. This is helpful when creating multiple views of the same structure that you'd like to manage as separate files. Edit Info allows you to add comments to the specified sketch file. Simply add your comments to the text box provided, save them, and you're done. By the way, this is also where you designate the sketch's area calculations to be counted toward occupancy area, which we'll perform later after we've drawn a sketch. These comments are displayed just below the sketch list and appear as each sketch file is selected. Choosing Delete will prompt you to confirm that you wish to remove the highlighted sketch file from the list. That's all there is to it. Let's take a look at adding a new sketch. I'll choose Browse and select Allison and Associates from the list and click OK to load it. There are no sketch files associated with this occupancy, so I'll choose New Sketch to continue. OK, now you've launched FH Sketch and you'd like to begin drawing but you're not quite sure where to begin. Don't worry, that's exactly what this video is all about. For the next few minutes, I'll take you through everything you need to begin drawing sketches on your own. If this is your first time using FH Sketch, you might feel a little overwhelmed by all the options and buttons you see. Whether you create your floor plans room by room or by level, the method of drawing is always the same, and you'll quickly discover that drawing areas is as simple as 1, 2, 3. First, we need to define the area we want to draw. You can access Define Area by pressing F4, or select Define Area from the command pad. This is where you choose from the list of available area codes. These codes can be modified to match your own preferences, but for this exercise, we'll use the default codes we see here. The Define Area dialog offers other options that you'll learn along the way. For now, until you become more familiar with the program, just remember, this dialog is where you'll begin every time you wish to draw a new area. The plus sign to the left of the code simply indicates that this code has multiple sub-areas to choose from. The floor plan we're going to draw is an office building, so I'll choose Commercial. Clicking OK or pressing Enter will advance to the sub-area dialog. I'll choose the office area code. You can change the name to something different than the default, but I like office, so I'll leave it as is. You can also change the type of calculation to perform on this area by choosing negative, positive, or auto-subtract. Most of the areas you'll draw will have a positive calculation. However, there are times when you may need a negative area to remove stairs, elevator shafts, or atriums, for example. Click OK or press Enter to continue. We've successfully defined our area, which is now displayed in the status window at the bottom of the interface. This brings us to the second task where we need to establish a point of beginning. When drawing with pencil and paper, you often need to consider the best place to start. Otherwise, you might reach a point where you draw off the edge of the paper. In FH Sketch, you don't need to worry about where to begin. Simply choose a place and press Enter. The cursor will change from a pointer to a crosshair and you're ready to draw. Drawing the area is the third task we need to do. You can draw lines by moving your mouse. You can draw with the arrow keys on your keyboard. Or you can input the measurement using your 10 key and then choose a direction with your arrow keys. This last method of drawing is the most popular amongst users and what we'll use throughout this video. FH Sketch allows you to enter your measurements in feet and inches or decimal feet, also known as architectural or engineering input. Just keep in mind, regardless of which you use, the basic drawing paradigm remains the same. I'll draw a couple of lines to illustrate both methods of input. Let's say you have a line that's 9.8 feet in length and extends to the right. Using engineering input, you would draw this line by inputting 9.8, followed by the right arrow key. As you see here, the line is drawn and the dimension reflects your input. Now let's draw a line 9 feet 8 inches to the right using architectural input. To draw this, you would input the following: 9, tab, 8, followed by the right arrow key. The line is drawn just as it was before. The only difference is the dimension is automatically converted to the decimal equivalent. This is by design, making it easier to verify area calculations. Okay, now you understand how to draw lines in FHsketch. Let's move on. The first line in our area is 11.5 feet to the right. Let's draw this by entering 11.5, followed by the right arrow key. The line is drawn accordingly. Next, press Enter to anchor the line. The line will change, indicating it has been anchored, and the dimension is displayed with the cursor attached. At this point, you can move the dimension with your mouse or your arrow keys. You can make it larger by pressing the plus key, or smaller by pressing the minus key. Finally, you can rotate it by pressing the letter R. By the way, when rotating anything in FHsketch, pressing R will rotate the selected object in 45-degree increments. Pressing Shift-R will rotate in 5-degree increments, and pressing Control-Shift-R will rotate the object in 1-degree increments. If you're having trouble getting the object to straighten out, you can also press H for horizontal, V for vertical, and for dimensions you can press P for parallel, which will match the dimension's angle with the line it belongs to. Once you're satisfied with the dimension's orientation, press Enter to place it. The dimension is now anchored. The cursor changes from a pointer to a crosshair and moves to the end of the line. Now we're ready to draw the next line, which is 5 feet up from this point. To draw this, I'll enter 5 and press the up arrow. I'll press Enter to anchor the line, and Enter again to anchor the dimension. Let's continue. The next line is 13.5 feet to the right. I'll enter 13.5 and press the right arrow followed by Enter 2 times to anchor the line and dimension. Let's draw a few more lines in the same fashion. 4 feet up, 4 feet right, 16.4 feet down, 18.1 feet right. Notice how the line went off the drawing port? Don't worry, you can keep your sketch centered at all times by pressing the letter C. Let's continue. 50.5 feet up. Press C to center the sketch. 24 feet left. 18 feet down. 13.1 feet left. Now we've come to a bay window in the property and you need to draw an angled wall. Most angles you'll encounter are fairly easy to measure using Rise and Run. Drawing them in FHsketch is even easier. The rise and run of the first angle in the bay window is 2 feet by 2 feet. To draw this, simply enter 2 and the up arrow, and without anchoring the line, enter 2 and the left arrow. Drawing in this fashion is what we refer to as dimension stacking, which allows you to continue to manipulate the line's length and orientation. Before we anchor the line, there are a couple of on-screen displays that will help you verify the accuracy of the lines and areas you draw. First, as you drew the second measurement of the angle, Rise and Run dimensions appear, offering instant feedback. You'll also find similar information in the lower right-hand portion of the interface. This area that we refer to as the tracking port provides real-time feedback of the current line drawn by reporting the rise and run as well as the total length of the line and angle. Just remember that before you anchor your line, take a glance at this information provided for quick verification. Let's anchor the line and dimension by pressing Enter twice and continue with the office area. The face of the bay window is 6 feet to the left. I'll draw this line and anchor it in place. To draw the other side of the bay window, I'll enter 2 down and 2 left. When I do this, you'll notice alignment with the point of beginning, which is indicated by the red handle you see here. While creating the area, you'll notice many alignment indicators that aid you in drawing. I'll anchor the line and remove the redundant dimension by pressing spacebar. Let's take a look at the tracking port again. The information in the tracking port is always swapping between the line drawn and 2 POB. The distance to the point of beginning is an important piece of information to know because it allows you to quickly compare what you are drawing in FHsketch with your notes. Since this is the last line of the area, only one dimension is displayed, which reports 25.1 feet to close. Let's say that your notes show a measurement of 28.1 feet for this particular wall. Assuming your measurements in your notes are accurate, you'll need to check for errors in your drawing to ensure they were input correctly. After looking, let's say you find that the 50.5 foot line drawn here was actually supposed to be 53.5 feet long. To correct this, repeatedly press delete until the 50.5 foot line is removed. Now enter in the correction of 53.5 feet up. You may be thinking, that's just great. Now I have to draw all those lines over again. Relax. Just as you press delete to remove lines from the drawing, you can also press insert to redraw the lines. I'll press insert until all the lines I removed are back. Now when we look at the tracking port, the measurements match my notes, and I'm ready to complete the area. I have a couple of options that I can use at this point. I can enter the dimension as reported in the tracking port of 28.1 feet. Or I could use the autoclose function in FHsketch that will draw the last line in the sketch for me. To use autoclose, press the letter A and the last line will be drawn. For simple areas such as this, autoclose isn't all that different than drawing the last line. But as you become more familiar with drawing in FHsketch, you'll find other creative uses for autoclose that will save you a lot of time and headache. Let's place the dimension by pressing enter. At this point, if you have autopost for the area name and calculations turned on in the Define Area dialog, the name of the area will appear in the center of the area attached to the cursor. Just as you did with dimensions, you can place this with your mouse or arrow keys, rotate it by pressing R, or resize it by pressing the plus and minus key. As an added tip, if your mouse has a scroll wheel, you can resize dimensions and text labels by rolling the mouse wheel forward and backward. If you right-click, the program swaps to rotation mode, and now when you roll the mouse wheel forward or backward, dimensions and text labels will rotate accordingly. Once you're happy with the area label, press Enter or left-click to anchor it. Next, the calculations will appear attached to the cursor. I'll place this label in the same manner we did for the area name. Congratulations! You've drawn your first area. Pretty easy, huh? It gets even easier. Let's draw the front entry. To draw a new area in FHsketch, you perform the same 3 tasks we did for the first area. First task, define the area. Press F4 or click the Define Area button from the command pad. Since we're drawing an entry, I'll select the appropriate area code from the list. I'll choose Porch from the list and change the name to Front Entry and then click OK to continue. Second task, establish a point of beginning. This area is attached to the office area we drew, and to do that you'll need to use a very important alignment tool we call Jump. To use Jump, you press the letter J and it will move the cursor to the end point of the line it's closest to. The purpose of Jump is to ensure that the positioning of your cursor is precisely placed for the purpose of attached areas and drawing accuracy. You can attempt to place the cursor with your mouse, but doing so in many cases will result in unattached areas or the appearance of thick lines. I'll place the cursor near the corner of the 4 foot and 16.4 foot line as illustrated here. Then I'll press J to jump to the corner. Now my cursor is exactly where I'd like it, so I'll press Enter to establish my point of beginning. Third task, draw the area. The first line we need to draw is down and comes in alignment with the corner of the 5 foot and 11.5 foot line shown here. Looking at the dimensions available, I could discern that I need to draw the line 9 feet down. Instead, this is a good time to use another alignment tool we call Enhanced Pop. By pressing and holding Control, and then pressing the down arrow key 1 time, the cursor will travel in the specified direction until it pops in alignment with another point in space. In this case, it comes in alignment with the 13.5 foot line as shown here. When I press the down arrow key again, it continues to the next point of alignment, which is the 11.5 foot line we were targeting. I'll anchor the line and place the dimension to the left. Using the same method, I'll press and hold Control and then press the left arrow key 3 times to move the cursor into alignment. I'll anchor the line and dimension as we did before. When you're drawing with pencil and paper, this area would be complete. However, since we need a calculation for this area, the shape needs to be drawn. I'll draw them by entering the following measurements. 5 feet up. I'll press spacebar after each line to remove the redundant dimensions. 13.5 feet right. 4 feet up. A to autoclose the area. I'll blank the dimension and place the area labels as we did for the office area. By now, you have a pretty good feel for drawing lines and angles in FHsketch, but there's another element we need to cover, and that's drawing curves. I'll show you this while we draw the deck. Let's define the area by pressing F4 or Define Area from the command pad. I'll choose Porch Patio, then click OK. Now I'll choose Deck and click OK again. Placing the cursor to the left side of the bay window, I'll press J to jump to the nearest point and press Enter to establish the point of beginning. The first line before the curve begins is 8 feet up from this point, so I'll go ahead and draw that line. Curves are relatively easy to draw once you understand the process of how they're constructed. Press F7 to access curve properties. This is where you can select preset degrees of curvature or input more information for those odd curves to have FHsketch solve the curvature for you. It's safe to say that most of the time, the curves you'll encounter are 90 degrees or rounded corners. That's what we'll choose here. Next, you need to choose which way the curve turns. Imagine walking in the direction of the lines you're drawing. Which way would you turn? Left or right? In this example, the curve turns to the right, so I'll make sure it's selected. That's all I need to draw my curve, so I'll click OK. If you're like most users, you may be surprised to see a stretched curve that at this point looks nothing like your field notes or printed floor plan. Don't worry, we still need to move the curve into position, and we'll do that now. Most users prefer to use reference points to determine the chord of the curve. Using functions you've already learned to this point, let's figure out the chord by using these reference points. When we drew the 8-foot line, we already knew where the curve begins. Looking at our notes, we also know the curve ends 13.1 feet to the left of this point. I can establish the chord by placing the cursor near this point, press J to jump to it, then enter 13.1 and press the left arrow key. Your curve is now positioned, and you can anchor it just as we have with any other line. Another way to draw curves is to use your mouse wheel. Using the same technique to position the chord, I'll jump to this point and move 13.1 feet to the left. Now I'll roll my mouse wheel forward until it reads the degree of curvature I'm after. Once it's drawn, I'll anchor it in place. Let's continue. I'll draw the 13.1 foot line to the right, coming in alignment with the 18-foot line of the office area. When we drew the front entry, we knew each of the common walls back to the point of beginning. This is necessary for calculation purposes. But to save you time, you can use the AutoTrace feature to draw the remaining lines for you. The trick to using AutoTrace is to make sure you begin and end on an endpoint of the same area. In this example, the highlighted points are where we began and ended the lines of our deck in order for AutoTrace to work properly. To activate AutoTrace, press Ctrl F3 and the lines are automatically drawn. The next thing you'll see is the area label attached to the cursor for placement. I'll place the labels as we did for the other areas drawn. Now you're cooking with gas. By this point, you're prepared to draw most any shape you encounter. But there's one more area we need to draw, and it introduces yet one more element to drawing in FHsketch that we call quick shapes. For rectangular shapes, FHsketch allows you to input the width and height of the shape to draw it. Let's draw the covered parking area to illustrate the quick shape feature. I'll press F4 and choose the garage carport area and click OK. I'll then choose carport and change the name to covered parking. I'll click OK to continue. For all areas where you need to draw each line, you can establish a point of beginning by pressing Enter. But for quick shapes, it's essential that you have a pointer cursor and not a crosshair to perform this function. The width and height measurements for the covered parking area are 23 feet by 24 feet. So I'll enter the width, 23, press the letter X, and then enter the height, 24. Notice the heads-up display in the lower left displays the information you've entered. Press Enter and the shape you've specified will appear on the drawing board attached to the cursor ready for placement. You could place the garage with your mouse or arrow keys, but to ensure proper placement, I'll do the following. First, I'll place the cursor near this point. I'll press J to jump to it, but doing this places the covered parking area over the office area. Knowing the covered parking area width is 23 feet, I'll move it to the left the same distance, ensuring the area is attached and properly placed. Congratulations! You've now completed all the areas of the sketch. Let's check out the area calculation summary by pressing F6. For the most part, the sketch is complete. However, we'll continue with a few more functions and features of FHsketch. Let's add a few freeform lines. Freeform lines are used to illustrate other elements of the property that are not used for calculation purposes. Interior walls and fence lines are common examples of where freeform lines come into play. Freeform is a mode of drawing that you can access by pressing F5 or clicking the Freeform button from the command pad. The status window at the bottom of the interface reflects that we are in freeform mode and we're ready to begin. Drawing in freeform is no different than drawing any line, with one exception. You can pick the pen up at any point and move your cursor to another location. The first line we need to draw extends from this point here to the perimeter wall of the area as indicated here. I'll move the cursor to the beginning point and press J to jump to it. Next, I'll press Enter to put the pen down, which changes the cursor from a pointer to a crosshair. The line is 18.1 feet in length. I'll enter 18.1 and press the right arrow. I'll press the Enter key to anchor the line. Now I need to move to a new location to begin a new line. I'm still in a drawing state as indicated by the crosshair cursor. If I press Enter again without drawing anything, the cursor will change to a pointer. This is what we refer to as picking the pen up. I need to move the cursor 13 feet up from here to draw the next line. I'll enter 13 and press the up arrow. To put the pen down again, I'll press Enter, which changes the cursor back to a crosshair. The line I need to draw is 12 feet to the left, so I'll enter 12 and press the left arrow key. Now I'll press Enter to anchor the line. You've already learned about Enhanced Pop, which allows you to come in alignment with another point in space. However, there are times when you want the cursor to travel until it intersects with another line. This is what we call Pop. To use this, press and hold Ctrl and Shift. Then specify a direction by pressing an arrow key. The direction we want to draw is down, so I'll press the down arrow. As you see, the cursor traveled 13 feet down until it intersected with the first freeform line we drew. Let's anchor it by pressing Enter. That's all there is to freeform lines. As you can see, the interior portions of the property are beginning to take shape. Now let's add a couple of text labels. Text labels are often necessary to provide more information about the property. In this case, we'd like to add a couple of office labels to identify the offices. To access the text library, press T or click the text library button on the right. There are a number of preset labels to choose from that you can drag and drop right onto the sketch itself. I'll drag a couple of the office labels onto the sketch and drop them in place. Next, I need to add a label that doesn't exist in the list called Entry, so I'll enter the label in the input field provided. When I'm done, I'll press Enter and then place the label in the same manner I did the offices and press Enter again to anchor it. As you can see, continuing to add labels to the sketch in this manner is a piece of cake. Let's jump ahead and add a few symbols to our sketch. To access the symbol library, press S or click the symbol library button on the right. Whenever you open the symbol library for the first time, you'll see a list of symbols that are contained in the Favorites library. You can edit this list to contain any number of symbols you prefer. Otherwise, you can access specific symbols based on their type by choosing the appropriate category from the drop-down list. In this example, I'd like to place a few doors, so I'll choose the Doors category. All of the doors contained within the symbol library will be displayed in the list. The first door I'd like to place is a right-hinged 90-degree door, so I'll select it from the list. The preview at the bottom displays the appearance of the door as well as its dimensions. I need a 3-foot by 3-foot door, so I'll need to change the dimensions. If I click the plus or minus button, you'll notice the increment is too large for what I need. In this case, I'll click in the width and height fields and manually change the dimensions to reflect what I need. Now that I've entered the new width and height for the door, I'll click Select. The symbol appears on the sketch attached to the cursor and is ready for placement. As with dimensions and labels, you can move the symbol with your mouse or arrow keys. You can also rotate the symbol by pressing the letter R. Most users prefer to place symbols with their mouse because it's faster. Quickly move the cursor as I've done here and click or press Enter to anchor it. Drag and drop also works from this panel. Let's place the 8-foot sliding door on the rear of the property leading to the deck. Simply drag the symbol onto the drawing board and drop it in place. You can also use all your alignment tools to place symbols. Let's use Jump for example. In this case, I'll drag the corner fireplace onto my sketch, rotate it, place it near this corner, and press J to jump it into position. I'll release the mouse button and the symbol is anchored. Let's place a few NFPA approved symbols, but before I do, I need to rescale the sketch to provide a little more room. You can access Rescale by pressing Ctrl R or clicking the Rescale button on the command pad. From the Rescale dialog, you can choose from a number of presets, where you can input a new scale. I'll change the scale to 1 inch equals 15 feet. When I press Enter, the new scale will be applied. Now it's time to place a few fire symbols, such as the electrical shutoff, the gas shutoff, the fire department key box, and a fire hydrant. Let's say this completes our sketch. It's time to bring it back into Firehouse. I'll click Save and then choose Exit. FH Sketch will close and return you to the occupancy window. The sketch file has been added and the thumbnail image is displayed. Area calculations are also passed back to Firehouse that you can specify through the Building tab. But before we do that, I'll click on Edit Info for this sketch file. As we covered earlier, this is where you can designate the sketch's area calculations to be counted toward occupancy area. With this checked, let's close the dialog and click the Building tab. On the left side of this dialog, this section is reserved for building size. Currently, nothing is specified for this building's total area. I'll click Update. From this dialog, you can perform various calculations. However, what we're interested in for this exercise is obtaining effective area. As soon as I check the box for Calculate from Sketches, Firehouse will pull the sketch calculations directly from those files that were designated to be used for occupancy area. Simply save and close this dialog. Nothing else is better or faster. You now have all the tools you need to begin drawing on your own. Whether it's a simple or complex property, as long as you remember the 3 basic tasks, you're well on your way to completing your sketches in a matter of minutes.